And we're live.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 57 of Fans of Power. I am Joe Amato, and I'm here with my partner in crime, Tyler T-Rex Baker. And T-Rex, we got ourselves a guest this week, a very special guest. You know what we're talking about?
Yeah, and when I introduced her, I want to let her know that she said something on a podcast years ago that always stuck with me because she vented my frustrations on a podcast that she was on years ago. I don't know if she remembers it, but it was her lashing out as to asking, why the hell was Snake Man-at-Arms even put into classics form? And I remember,
yes,
thank God somebody vented their frustrations about why that abomination was forced on us in this classics line. So if you're wondering who I'm talking about Penny Dreadful. You know, this woman did my frustrations on another podcast, and I was actually making a point to let her know that tonight that I have that's one of my fond memories of her work in the He-Man fan community is sharing my frustrations for that stupid figure.
Well, that's a heck of an intro. That's definitely it.
But remember, I even got Snake Man-at-Arms' head and Clawful's big claw over here as I'm looking at it right now. So
perfect. That's where it belongs. Yeah. Snake Man-at-Arms. Never got the appeal there. Definitely my least favorite figure in classics. Still to this day, I never liked not only the figure, but the concept of Snake Man-at-Arms was never something that I.
Oh boy, you know how giddy that makes me to hear this universal distaste for the abomination.
Yeah, not many fans of that character, that figure. But yes, so you guys heard it. Penny Dreadful, you know her as Danielle, and she's done a lot in the Masters of the Universe community. And for those that maybe don't know who she is, I mean, Danielle, why don't you tell everybody a little bit about yourself, so everybody can know who you are.
Well, first, I want to thank you guys for having me on the podcast tonight. I really appreciate it. It's really fun to hang out and geek out with you guys, so thanks a lot. Yeah, I've been a Masters of the Universe fan since 1982. The first time I saw the Castle Grayskull commercial with Beastman and He-Man. And I always liked spooky stuff. And Dracula and things, and something about that commercial was so mysterious and epic with that timpani drum playing, the boom boom boom, and just the castle with a skull face, and something about that really just resonated with me. And so I've been a fan ever since then. And I got involved with the fan community early on in the 90s, so the Guardians of Grayskull mailing lists, and was part of that for a long time, and joined up with He-Man.org, and I've just been a long time, kind of dropped in and out here and there, but lately I've been fortunate enough to work officially on the brand in some capacity. So that's been a real pleasure and an honor to be involved in some of that stuff.
Well, you're definitely a hardcore fan. Yeah, I mean, you are a hardcore fan. People know you. And you're speaking of talking about working on some of the stuff right now. Now, one thing in particular is the newspaper comic strip. It's all going to be, now these are the strips that were put into the paper. I think they start off in the U.S. and then they went overseas and stuff too. But this is going to be a whole compilation. It's the one that Dark Horse is putting out. Now, could you tell everybody a little bit about maybe just what got you into that, like how you even got involved in that project, and of course then when this book is supposed to hopefully come out. I know it's going to be coming out soon, I believe.
Yeah, sure. Well, back in the 90s, sometime in the mid to late 90s, I remember looking on eBay and seeing He-Man comic strips for sale. It was like a little collection that someone was selling, and I said to myself, wow, He-Man comic strips, that's amazing. I didn't bid on them, unfortunately, but it always stuck in my mind that there were these He-Man comic strips that existed. And I've always kind of been fascinated by their existence, but I knew very little about them. And then every so often you'd see some turn up online, you'd see a strip here and there turn up, and I just kind of became curious about them. I talked to a couple of fans, Dusan Mitrovic, who was involved in the official YouTube channel with James E. Talk, and I talked to Dusan about it because Dusan used to read them in the Serbian editions of the comic strip. And so I started kind of gathering information about them and finding out more and more about them. And then at one point, Val Staples and I invited Chris Webber and Karen Wilson to PowerCon, and they worked on the comic strip, and they worked at Filmation as well.
Okay.
And they were writers for Filmation. And Chris Webber was the writer of the comic strip. Karen Wilson was the editor. Gerald Fortin was the illustrator of the comic strip. And so one year we had them at PowerCon, and I wound up talking to them. And it turns out there was 4.5 years worth of this comic strip that ran on the newspapers every day. Every day this comic strip ran. Dailies were in black and white. Sundays were in color. And so I said, gosh, there's this whole storyline of He-Man and the Masters of the Universe, a canon, if you will, of Masters of the Universe that very few people have had a chance to see from the vintage era from 1986 to 1991. And so I said, gosh, I really would like to find these comic strips somehow. And so I mentioned to Val, I said, it would be cool if we could find these and maybe put them up on heman.org or something, like one a day or something. And he said, yeah, that would be cool. And so 1 year after Comic-Con, I called Chris Webber. I said, hey, can we come over to your house? Because Chris had a lot of the comic strips that he cut out from the newspaper. So we went to his house. We scanned everything he had, but it turned out he only had about maybe 2 years worth of the comic strip. He didn't have the whole thing. He had maybe half of it, because as we learned, the strip in the United States, it started out as a joint effort between Filmation and Mattel. They kind of joined forces to do this, and everybody who worked on the comic strip was a Mattel alumni. They all worked at, Filmation alumni, writers, artists, everybody there worked at Filmation. Started out as a joint effort. Eventually it became just Mattel doing it, right? And then eventually the papers, they carried it until about 1988 or so. And then most of the U.S. newspapers started dropping the strip. And there weren't a ton of them in the U.S. that carried it. There were I don't remember how many, maybe 7 or so in the U.S. that carried the newspaper strip. But there were other places overseas, like in South America and Greece and India and all these crazy, random countries that were running the newspaper strip. And their same strip, they just would take it and translate it into other languages, just like they would do with the Filmation cartoon in the 80s. It was syndicated all over the world. Same thing with the strip. So it took a lot of research to try to find these, and Val and I and Eric Gibagok on the forums, really nice guy. We actually wound up going to the Library of Congress in Washington, D.C. to source microfilm and do high-resolution scans from microfilm. We got, Greek comics over from Greece, like comic collections. Joe, I think you have a couple of those, I believe. Yeah, those were the newspaper strips printed in these Greek collections. And we went to, contacted South America, the newspaper in South America, O Globo, that ran the strip for quite a long time. And they had a lot of the color Sundays, and they actually helped us out and got us a lot of those color Sundays. So through a lot of research and elbow grease and searching, web searches, phone calls, international phone calls, I speak Portuguese, so I was able to speak to the people in Brazil who speak Portuguese. So it's craziness. A lot of the work too, restoring stuff. Leanne Hanna, who worked on the MV Creations 2000X comic, she did a lot of the restoration. And so it was a joint effort between quite a few people, and kind of Val and I tag teamed a lot on trying to locate the sources and the material. And while this was going on, as we started this early looking for it, the art book came out. The Dark Horse art book was coming out, and I said, well, gosh, wouldn't it be cool if we could get these into a book, like a whole collection of these strips. So talked to Val about it, sent him some examples of different comic strip books. I dropped a line over to Daniel, the editor at Dark Horse, and also mentioned the idea to him, sent along some strips for the art book, which wound up, they did a 2-page spread of the strips. And the ball started rolling. It started to get interest. Val put a poll on heman.org about which comic what would you like next as a Dark Horse book? And people voted, and the strip book did very well, as did the Filmation cartoon guide, which came out, which my good friend James Edock, amazing book, which I have here next to me. It blows my mind whenever I look at that book. You know, that did well, and that's told Dark Horse, okay, maybe we'll, maybe we can give this a try. And so it kind of went from there, and it happened. It's crazy that it's a reality now, and it's coming out on February 14th on Valentine's Day. What a great Valentine's Day gift.
That's a good gift. That's a gift that a loved one should get something there. But what dedication and research and everything that you guys did into that, it's amazing. It's fantastic. What's great about it is, like you said, it's older stuff, but it's stuff almost nobody has ever seen before. They never, half of the people have never heard of it. So this is what's old is actually new, and I'm most excited about this probably more than any of the books so far, because like you said, 4 years of strips of all this, of comics and stories and things and characters maybe we've never seen and characters we've seen before but maybe look different. Like I said, I know there's no way we'd want you to tell any of the story, because that'd be fun. It's for fans to find out and to see who didn't know it. There's one thing I posted online, which it's not a spoiler, but like King Hiss, for example, he looks nothing like the King Hiss we know, and that's why I love that one comic I have. It's the only one that I have from, I think, that series. And King Hiss looks more of like a crocodile man, or he's like a green reptile. He's completely different, and I think fans.
He has a cape.
He's got a cape and it's like this weird, like pointed staff or spear staff. But yeah, I love that red cape, and he's odd looking. But I'm so glad that you guys did this gigantic project, because trust me, it's going to pay off. I haven't met a fan that hasn't wanted this yet, because just the thought of, again, seeing all this stuff that's never happened. It's never been here for everybody to see. It's just going to be the biggest. I think it might be one of their best sellers, at least for me. I would think. I don't know if it will.
I hope so. I hope people like it. I hope people like it. Like any other stories, some stories maybe people will like more than others. There's some really cool ones. There's a lot of mythology and lore, like about the sorceress, and just different things that they kind of touch on. Some of it's kind of corny, but it's fun corny. I love it.
Well, like you said, I guess everything gets a little bit of fun corny. Everything kind of has.
Yeah.
But
and some of it's fantastic. Like you guys were talking last week, I listened to the episode about you guys were talking about, did Orko and Gwildor ever like have adventures together or interact? And in the comic strip, you do see them together quite a bit, and they have a bit of a. I won't spoil it. Just their personalities. Just think about their personalities. What are both guys into? Like one's into one thing, one's into something else. So see how that dynamic works there.
Yeah, because I know Tyler, he's just like us. He eats the stuff up. And I know, Tyler, you're probably going to be definitely buying this book, too, just to see some stuff from the past that, how we enjoy a lot of the stuff then. At least it was, seemed like it was more fun. But you're getting it, I'm assuming, correct?
Oh, without a doubt. I had no idea that this was even a thing until Joe sent me a couple samples of it. And I thought, whoa, this was and then they come to find out that you were working on this book. I was like, what? There's enough for a book? Yeah, so that's really it was just kind of one of those moments where the brain kind of pops out of the skull and then kind of comes back in there. So it was pretty cool, because the closest thing I could ever think of was seeing Spider-Man in the newspaper. I thought, well, that was so. But to think of He-Man being as a regular comic strip in certain, and no wonder when you said that maybe about 7 national newspapers or 7 papers spread throughout the U.S. and of course other parts of the world got it. It's no wonder why I never heard about it until Joe told me about it. I think it was well before the book was announced. I think he just kind of went with his.
Because when I was showing when I was showing you my scan of the thing with King Hiss and some of the other oddball things. But when I show that, it takes fans always saying, what is that? Because that was like years ago. I remember when I first showed that King Hiss one, and so many people kept saying, where's King Hiss? I don't see King Hiss in this. I was like, no. I said, that's King Hiss right there. I was like, huh? And then they wanted to know more, and I had no clue about the amount of stuff. It's just, I thought, hey, there was a couple of these. And then you start finding out more and more, and yeah, like you said, now you got 4 years of it popped into one big, giant book, and I can't wait for Valentine's Day. And everybody mark your calendar, Valentine's Day. Tell your loved one to get it, for you, and if not, you just love yourself and get it for yourself.
It is.
I have to ask her, because I want Daniel to spoil this for me if need be. All right, is Clamp Champ featured in any of these?
he is in actually a couple of the stories. Yeah.
All right. What about Ninjor and Scareglow?
Yes, they have Ninjor and Scareglow. Ninjor, one of the stories is specifically centered around Ninjor. He's like the main character in the story. Yeah, Ninjor stalks by night. Yeah, and Scareglow is in that story.
All right. What about Blade and Sorod?
Correct. Yes, they are. Yeah, one of the stories is centered around Blade specifically, and Sorod is in the story as well.
You know how fantastic that is? I mean, you just made Tyler's day with all those things.
Yeah, my nipples are hard right now. Just know that already.
Wow. There you go. Now that's excitement. That's excitement, people, right there.
See, now,
I'll ask a question. Now, this is the thing. I'll ask a question that, I mean, I already know the answer is no, but I'm going to say it for fun anyway. Hey, Danielle, are any meteors in that comic?
I'm sorry, Joe. The rock warriors are. The comet warriors are. The rock people are, but not. I'm sorry, Joe. I'm sorry.
That's fine. I mean, hey, I already knew it was going to be no, probably. That's all right.
Joe's going to reach a point where he really does get pissed off and start, kicking puppies, roughing up bartenders when he finally is told he's denied meteor again at some point. We'll see at some point.
Exactly, but you see this mask. I'm not lying. Maybe that'll be my thing. If they finally release a meteor and we get some for classics, this might come off. I might take the mask off.
Or it pops off like Jason's mask would in Friday the 13th Part 7, or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. Shattered. And underneath I have a mask of Cometroid or something. You're like, dang.
You have to. That has to be your vow. If Super 7 releases a meteor, which could happen, that mask has to come off.
Joe will be unmasked. All right. So, well, Danielle, thank you for all that info on that book. It's fantastic. We're all going to look forward to it. So, well, speaking of stuff from the past and different characters and stuff, we're going to move into now, because I know you love discussing certain characters too. We're going to discuss the Energy Zoids. Now, before we get to their mini comic, first we could just talk about the figures in general as a kid. Now, of course, I remembered when I first got them, completely something you've never seen before. I love their spin gimmick because it was their gimmick. It was all about gimmicks in the 80s. That's what it was. So it's fun to see these things. You rev them up, they spin around, knock things down, use their weapon. And now, Danielle, did you buy those when you were a kid too? Did you get them as an adult, or did you never get them?
I got them in the 90s. I did not get them when I was a kid, but I did wind up getting them in the 90s. I got them on card, and even then, as I recall, they were kind of expensive compared to the other figures, the Rotar and Twistoid. I got them both carded. It took me a little while longer to find Twistoid than Rotar, as I recall, but I did eventually get them. And then, as Joe knows, I sold most of my vintage collection off when I moved to California for a couple of years. I was out there and I needed money. And my one regret in life, I sold my vintage collection. But fortunately, my late husband, vintage figures over the years because he knew I was like ruining that I sold my vintage collection, and so I cherish those vintage figures now just as much as I did my childhood ones because those now have renewed meaning for me. But anyway, Rotar and Twistoid, got him in the 90s, didn't have him as a kid.
So I guess another quick question is, so you had them in on cards, so you never had the experience of opening them and seeing their feature or playing with their feature, huh?
Oh, I did. No, I think I told you before. I bought some lots of figures there was. I think Rotar was in one of them. So I did. I tried. It worked horribly. Didn't work at all. It was. I couldn't get him to work. I couldn't get him. Maybe I was doing it wrong.
Well, that's heartbreaking. I mean, me, I just, like I said, I played with them into the ground. They were my spinning warriors to knock out piles of the other ones. If I had the good setup and pad, I'd have it and see who could knock the most down. But like Tyler, I can't remember. Did you say you did get them too, or you got them later, or what?
I wasn't even aware they existed until I saw them on the old Adam Tyner He-Man website, which was just pictures of various vehicles and that's where I saw the hero prototype and things like that, and that's where I saw Rotar and Twistoid for the first time, and I thought, oh wow, those look awesome, and I would see more pictures of them in Lee's toy review, but I got Twistoid in a lot from a guy that was around my age that was just, I put an ad in a local like sales paper, and his grandmother answered it, and he met up with me, and Twister was part of this trunk of random He-Man toys that he sold to me for like $40.
Oh, wow.
And then I got Rotar on like the early days of eBay for $20 with nothing. And at that point, and pretty much too, I didn't care if it didn't come with anything. It's like, I've got Rotar. Like, this is a hard one to find. This guy wants $20 by now. Here. So
cool.
I was just glad to have it. Still don't have either one of them. They're sitting in these perfectly, set holes on my display shelves. It's like these shelves they make for like hardware tools. They're perfect for displaying Rotar and Twister when you don't have like the display pieces that they would sit in.
Don't feel too bad about that, because they never really balanced in those anyways. I mean, they came first. There was like those little pedestal things that they had. There was no way in God's green earth.
Anything like that. These
but don't feel bad. They couldn't even stand in those. I used to look at them like, what is the purpose of this? They can't sit there perfectly with the way the weight was. And you could try to get lucky and get them in their little attack weapon. Like sometimes Twistoid definitely would get in the center of his perfectly. He sometimes could stand, but Rotar would still just tip over on his. But well, like I said, I wanted to get everybody's experience on the figures, because this is all going to be building up to something eventually. But okay, let's go into the mini comic. And Danielle, since you're our guest, why don't you give us your thoughts on the Energy Zoid mini comic, and then we can kind of ramble on it back and forth.
Well, the Energy Zoid mini comic, I also got in the 90s, and that I did not sell. I didn't sell any of my mini comics. I loved it. I mean, I really enjoyed it. I think it was a cool idea. To me, Rotar, like, okay, so he's this soldier who's, mortally wounded in battle. Like, he's grievously wounded, and he has to be saved by Man-at-Arms. So He-Man brings him to, happens off panel, but He-Man brings Rotar to Man-at-Arms, puts him in this gyro machine, and turns him into the first Energy Zoid, into a cyborg with no legs or lower torso, seemingly just this kind of metallic looking cone that he spins on, and he becomes a heroic warrior and wants to prove himself. And I always thought, to me, I just like, I don't know, I just thought that was, I don't know why those characters get so much hate, because I thought that was kind of a cool idea. Man-at-Arms had to save his life and had to turn him into a cyborg. I know some people have like come down hard on Man-at-Arms for doing that, but what is he gonna do? The guy, that was the only choice he had, to save his life. And then
kind of like a good Dr. Moreau.
Right? Yeah. Definitely. It's a cool mini comic. Then Skeletor and King Hiss wind up stealing the gyro machine, and they make the robot Twistoid, which is meant to make these battle robots, apparently. So he makes Twistoid, and they wind up having this big battle, Rotar versus, he outwits them and gets squeezed to get all tangled up with recall, and then He-Man shows up with Man-at-Arms and the gyro attacker, which I still wish that had gotten released as a toy, they saved the day.
You hear that, Super 7?
What's that?
I said, I hope Super 7's hearing that demand, because I would love to have the gyro attacker.
That'd be nice.
That would be so cool, right?
Yep. So with that comic, with everything you're saying there, see, and like you said at the beginning, just in case fans didn't catch that, she said they never showed He-Man bringing Rotar injured. It starts off with, like you said, Skeletor and King Hiss and Snake Face and I think Squeeze all around it, looking into that thing that they always do to spy on people. And they're spying and they're seeing that Man-at-Arms has a new machine, this gyro machine. And, gyro means spin. We'll all remember that, spinning. So it has this machine, and that's when he said, He-Man, I was able to save that wounded warrior. And he comes out and bam, he's somebody new, and it's Rotar. And Rotar even kind of like proclaims something like, even though this machine is used to create robots, it saved my life. So he says it. I mean, he's definitely let you know it's used to create robots. And it was then used to save his life. But they never showed him being brought. So you don't see what Rotar ever looked like. And we know he was wounded. We don't know how badly, but I mean, it was pretty bad because obviously you're going to die. He got saved. But just remember, like, that for later. But so he gets saved. They go into battle. And now here's the thing that you got to catch on to. There's a lot of times, for what I noticed, they kept calling him, at least I think on 3 different occasions, the evil warriors were calling him like shorty, twerp, something, little guy. I mean, because he's smaller. He's not a big guy. He's just a little thing, and it's a new spinning feature, and it was supposed to be like, of course, to make you buy the figures. It's all gimmicks again back then, but it was a cool story because he was somebody that he was supposed to be guarding the gyro machine. And when the evil warriors came in, because he's thinking like, oh man, this is my first act as a heroic warrior, is to guard this machine, and he wants to do more. But when the evil warriors show up, he thinks, should I go get the good guys? He's like, no, I'll try to do it. And of course, he should have probably went for help because he gets caught and captured and turned to stone by Snakeface. And then they're in a big arena. They fight. Here comes He-Man to save the day, like you said, in the gyro attacker. And then he learns that, hey, you should be able to count on your friends. But Tyler, you go ahead, flow with a little bit of the story, and then we'll get into some other stuff. But your thoughts on the characters in general in the mini comic?
I thought it was a great depiction of the two characters, essentially what they're supposed to be, and Rotar pretty much is the star of it. Twistwood kind of comes in as kind of like a brief afterthought, towards the end of it. It's enough to really set them up as like these are going to be two rivals, just like Fisto and Jitsu and Mechanic Buzz-Off and Cobra Khan and Webstar. People are, that's a natural rivalry to me. So
yes,
that's what
yeah.
it does. It sets it up as like further adventure. These two guys will be, butting heads and spinning around each other for quite a while. And it would have been cool to see an army of Twistors taking on Horde Troopers. Kind of what's hinted at in this, that their Skeletor's whole logic behind it is to combat Hordak. So to see Twistors fighting, Horde Troopers that burst when you hit him in the chest like Cyclone, is used. It would have been that would have been a cool mini comic. The Evil Warriors with Army of Twistors versus an Army of Horde Troopers. That would have been awesome to see. So it's a great mini comic. You got Squeeze, my favorite Snake Man, is pretty prominent in it. The Arena of Doom, which to me sounds just like the one from Clash of Arms, is featured again. And being teased by that wonderful toy that looks so cool, the Gyro Attacker.
That we never
This is just like, it's almost like the Powers of Grayskull. Well, not as disappointing as that when you never did find out as a kid who was the guy in the shadows, and you never got the third part. But, to advertise that cool looking toy that works strictly just with Rotar, pretty much. It's just, it's one of those reminders of like what could have been is what this mini comic is, just like Powers of Grayskull. It just shows you where this is going, and was stopped, and it's just a big tease, but it's still damn good.
What a good tease, yeah. But I mean, like I said, but a good comic. There was like maybe some part like Danielle, I think you might remember too, and other parts of it, but was when Rotar first met Twistoid, and Skeletor presented him his new evil robot, Twistoid, and I think there was a part where Rotar looks at him and says, "A robot?" And it was with a question mark. And I always thought, well, why are you surprised? You said it at the beginning. You burst into this machine and you said, it's the machine that's supposed to create robots, but it saved my life. It's like, well, why are you surprised it's a robot? Of course it's a robot.
He's trying to tell the kids reading the book that this is the robot and that he's you understand the logic there, Joe.
And it sets up a cool dynamic there, too, because it's like, well, like he'll never get tired because he's a robot, he can keep going and out wear you out, whereas Rotar he's a cyborg, he's human still, so he doesn't have the endurance that exactly like a shorter version.
He's the shorter Robocop, man. He remembers, he has memories. He's taking on Ed 209 here.
So, but all in all, no, it was a good story. Introduced them both, just like how we always seen with any characters. So we understood them, the gimmicks, who they were, and it was a fun comic. Now, otherwise in the United States, we never seen any other comics with them. There was like a little, I think in one of the Star Marvel comics, there was like that promotional page, and you seen Rotar standing there, I think.
Yeah.
But besides that, and Danielle, you can maybe share a little bit of this. you said that he appeared in one of the Italian comics or books or something. That's what's kind of cool. Tell us about that one.
Yeah, he's in he's in the Italian Magic Boy magazine, which had a section of He-Man comics in it, and so one of the stories had Rotar in it quite prominently, and it was him, Extendar, and Roboto, and Rotar was, he was quite the ladies' man in that, as I recall. Like, these like three girls show up, and the three heroes are kind of like, oh, we can't go talk to those girls. We're kind of like, we're the weird kind of heroic warriors. And Rotar's like, he just kind of, strolls or twists on over to them.
Okay.
And he's like winking, and one of the girls thinks he's cute. And then in the story, Skeletor has a device where he's able to take control of their components, so he makes them do horrible things, like he winds up taking over their sort of mechanical components, and He-Man winds up having to fight Extendar, Roboto, and Rotar, and it's just this crazy story. But it was kind of cool to see Rotar in another story, like and having kind of quite a personality there, where he's like macking on these girls. It's like, wow, that's unexpected.
I'd love it if we could translate that to eventually, like we could get that in some form so we could read that, because stuff like that is fascinating to read, to see him, like you said, as, man, he's a ladies' man. Because what's weird is, if you look at pictures of this, like I did, and you don't understand what they're saying, I'm wondering, why did Roboto just pimp smack a woman, like almost the train? I was like, what are you doing?
Yeah, I was shocked when I saw that. It was like, when I saw that, it was like they Rotar, like, well, Skeletor takes control of them and they start doing horrible things. So they're like talking to these girls, and then all of a sudden Rotar like spins his like that cone in the girl's face, and she like falls back, like, and then Extendar like extends himself to his full height and drops the girl like from this full height, and then Roboto like backhands this poor woman, and I'm like, what the hell is going on here? Like, this is horrifying. What is this abusive stuff happening here? And then it turns, and I didn't know what was going on because I don't read Italian, but I have a translation somewhere. I'll have to show it to you, but it's like they wind up it winds out that it's Skeletor that's kind of in control, takes control of them and makes them act horrible. So I guess that date didn't work out for those guys.
I guess not. I mean, I guess that's what's good is, I mean, like you said, when you find out from the translation, it's because they were under some kind of control. Because you're right, you look at that initially, you're wondering, why are all these poor women being abused? Now, here's the thing. Even though it's translated, and now you find out why, I'm like, that's still kind of crazy to show these poor, just innocent women being beaten. I mean,
right. You never would have seen that in an American comic in the 80s, I don't think. In a He-Man comic, I really doubt that would have been in there. But it's no. I did wind up. We have the Dark Horse is doing the character guide too, and we did there's an entry for the Italian comic Rotar in there that tells a little bit of that story as well.
Ladies Man Rotar. All right. So Tyler,
this is Ladies Man. Yeah.
Yeah, I want that to be part of his canon. Like, I want Rotar to be known as the Ladies Man of the Heroic Warriors. Like, kind of always looking like he's kind of slapping a girl on the rear end and kind of winking at her, kind of thing. He'd be kind of crass, like Rodney Dangerfield might be, or something like that. But they're still falling. They're falling all over this guy.
That's terrible. Oh my God, Tyler!
Great addition to this character.
He just gave me an image. Tyler just gave me a crazy image. Like, picture like if there was a lot of women standing, like maybe around, and you see Rotar. He's standing there. I mean, balancing there, and they slowly spins up. He says, "How you doing, ladies?" And he spins and smack, like hits all their butts and
although you gotta wonder if it was only his legs that got amputated in that accident. Like, I don't know what Rotar's got.
That's probably why he's kind of quite excited to kind of be spinning around all these girls. Still working fine here, lady.
That's crazy.
With me spinning around, it just means I can get to the next one faster.
That's awesome. Well, seeing as, like you said, we never had much, I guess, history for him beyond, the one we just read and what you just said. Now, that's what's cool. Didn't you, Danielle, you made up, like, your own kind of little story of, like, maybe what happened, how he got hurt, and exactly who he was? I mean, I think that'd be fun to hear, like, your kind of story that, what you made for him before he...
Joe, I can't believe that you even remember this story because it's buried in the bowels of He-Man.org somewhere. So it was
You know me and
fan.
characters, certain characters I love, and I can't help it. So yeah, go ahead.
It's like, wow, Joe, I'm impressed that you remember that. It was I wrote that story. It was a fanfic story. I don't really write fanfic that often, but I wrote that as a fanfic about Rotar. Probably the only Rotar fanfic in existence, as far as I'm aware. But because I was annoyed. I was really aggravated because when this was before Classics released Rotar and Twistoid as figures, and I remember fans saying to have a complete collection of vintage figures, or all the heroic warriors will be done once like Rio Blast or somebody comes out. Like once they'd list them out, but they'd leave off Rotar, you know, or they'd leave off Twistoid, off the Evil Warriors, and I'd get kind of annoyed by that because I'm like, these are Rotar and Twistoid are heroic warrior and evil warrior respectively. They're not like belong in as part of the vintage line. So, and then I'd read comments like they thought it was stupid, they had a stupid gimmick, or they thought Man at Arms was awful for doing that to this injured soldier and stuff. And I was like, well,
where's on the org over this stuff? Good grief.
It was like endless. It was on the org. It was on Facebook too. It was just like people kind of poo-pooing these characters. Yeah. And so I was like, well, I want to write a story about Rotar and why he's cool, you know? And I just kind of tried to like think, okay, what would the psychology of somebody like this be? Like I mean, if you think about the character, and this is, I know I'm thinking too deeply about it, and I fully admit that, but it's like this person horrible injury and was transformed into a cyborg, so he must have mixed feelings about that, like being in a situation like that. So this is him kind of like dealing with his new reality. Like he's, you know, he gets out of bed in the morning, his bed is lower to the ground, he gets out of bed and you hear the clank of the metal against the ground as he gets up, and he's you know, and he's dealing with his feelings about Man at Arms too. Like Man at Arms did do that to him, and then there's like, I had a scene between him and Man at Arms where Man at Arms, Rotar kind of confronts him and says, "Would you have done this if it had been the king, or if it had been Prince Adam or your own daughter?" And Man at Arms, without hesitation, replies, "I of course I would. I would do it without hesitation. You know, I would do the same thing to them as I would to anyone, because it was all I could do to save your life, and life is valuable, you know." And so they have this kind of conversation between the two of them, and I don't know, I kind of wanted to give them a little bit more an understanding, and I just kind of always thought of him as sort of like somebody who overcomes a serious handicap to become a heroic warrior. Like he was seriously injured and he has overcome that and has these new powers and abilities, and he's become a heroic warrior. I think it's an interesting dynamic for that character, and I always wondered why people didn't like just kind of dismissed him that way. It's like this character is powerful in several ways, you know. I think it's a cool character, and I know again, like I said, I'm thinking too deeply about it, but I wanted to kind of address that.
What you brought up there made me think of like the Lieutenant Dan character, Forrest Gump. Like he's quite upset that he's still alive, and he's, you know, his legs are missing, and then he really eventually comes to realize, hey, look, life can still be great. And you know, that's what you saying, that him getting out of bed, hearing the metal clank on the ground, and then, you know, going to question Man at Arms, you know, you did this to me, you know, and just kind of questioning that and coming to really appreciate it. That's a really good story you gave to him.
Thank you. Thanks. I just didn't like that he was just kind of just like, this is part of the vintage mess. He's a heroic warrior. Like, why is he not as important as other heroic warriors? Why can't he be included in the collection? And ironically, when the classics figures came out, now they're some of the most sought after figures, and people are mad because they can't get them for their collection because they're really, you know, so it's funny. You know?
That is bizarre. Like you said, I'm glad you did give them some more story, because that's what they kind of deserve. I mean, every character deserves more, but I think that's it. When you don't have too much of something, And then you see these characters that maybe when you were a kid, you didn't own Rotar and Twistoid because you thought they looked oddball. Maybe you started collecting Masters of the Universe when the cartoon was off the air, and now you're getting hand-me-down figures. Or you could have been somebody that just watched the cartoon a lot, even when it was still on, or maybe it was just going off, and still didn't have many of the figures. And later on,
are you describing me, Joe?
No, of course I'm describing you. Yeah, no, but here's the thing. Like I said, now, T-Rex is different. T-Rex is he's dedicated into all of it except the new Thundercats He-Man comic. But he's pretty much dedicated.
That's not even a thing. It's
oh, there he goes. There he goes.
Dear, I'm all speechless. Keep going.
You lit the fuse.
Yeah. So, anyways, I've noticed this with a lot of fans, and see, that's what it's leading up to for classics. Because then people were saying, "Hey, if they're released, should they have legs?" Now, most of the fans, I'm not saying all, because everybody's entitled to their opinion. If you like the legs, cool. I really respect that. But most of the fans that I grew up with, that liked He-Man and know, He-Man from the beginning, that collected everything, when they heard this leg option, they were like, oh, why legs? They didn't have legs before. Why would they have legs? And a lot of people would say, well, they should have it just to fit in. But then people would say, but they don't have legs. They never had legs. Then there's people that said, oh, I seen the mini comic and Rotar had legs in them. I'm like, which mini comic did you see? Because, we just read it right here. There was no legs in it. They didn't even mention that. As far as we know, he could have been a centaur warrior that lost his centaur body. He could have been a half man, half fish. We don't know what he looked like. And here's the other thing is, okay, you're giving him a leg option now, which, yeah, it's cool if you want to display. But I don't like the leg option at all because they were meant for being this gimmick back then, of being a spin gimmick. Gyro machine spin, Rotar spin, Twistoid spin. It all means spin. So the legs made zero sense to me. And so, like I said, they wanted to give them the legs because they thought they were in the comic. They said it in the comic. But again, it never happened like that. We never know how bad. And that's what I was going to say too, is, okay, you're giving the legs to, so Rotar apparently can look like he did when he had legs. Do you think when he had legs, he also had that breathing apparatus over his face and all the stuff on his chest? He was probably a whole different, completely looking character. He was probably, just like you said, we have no clue what he looked like. So by giving him legs, why don't you take off the breathing apparatus too? Why don't you take off this? It's not, there's no logic. And definitely Twistoid. There was never a Twistoid with a leg because from the get-go, they were spinning robots. That's what they were going to be, spinning robots. So that was my whole rant about it. That just drove me bananas. Now, this is when I did just Joe playing fun sometimes. When people were all supporting, saying, sure, the legs would be cool, I did this just for fun. I said, hey, should the hover robots come with legs? And also with, a stand of being hover. But I said, should they have legs? And everybody said, no, they shouldn't have legs. That'd be stupid. And I was like, well, why is it stupid? They said, well, they never had legs. I said, neither did the Energizoids. And I know why this is. Now, Danielle, I think you might be able to agree with me, and maybe even T-Rex can understand this. Most people who know the Hoverbots obviously know it was from the Filmation cartoon. You've seen them tons of times. They're buried into your brain. But a lot of the people that were into the cartoon, like I said earlier, didn't have Rotar and Twistoid. Some never knew of them. I think if they would have been in the Filmation cartoon and they had some prominent roles, at least 5 episodes at least, I don't think anybody would have questioned, oh, they should have legs. They would have said they didn't have them in the cartoon because a lot of people really take that cartoon from what their knowledge is. A lot. I'm not saying all, but I guarantee you, that's why the hated ones, Rotar, Twistoid, Scareglow, Ninjor, Blast Attack, they're not in the cartoon, and that's when they're some of the hated ones. I think if they were in the, what do you think? If they were in the cartoon, do you think they would have got a little more respect of people, maybe, in knowing who they should be? You can go ahead, Tyler. Go ahead, Tyler, first, and then Danielle. I'm just curious about the whole Filmation thing. It's a thought. That's my thought.
I have to disagree because Snout Spout did appear, and the guy still gets a lot of dismissive reactions, which I'm like, I still want to, smack people left and right, for dismissing him and anybody who came out in 1987, extend all rear blasts. I just want to, line them all up and just smack them all. It's just acting as if like the only first 2 waves of characters are like, no, that's He-Man. Well, it's like, to me, you're a casual fan. You're not a hardcore fan.
There's differences.
So around loosely that you got all this and that, and they don't count. You know, there's several characters that like Jitsu have one appearance, but he's still a relatively loved character. I don't think he gets nowhere near his attention he deserves. One appearance, not even name checked in the episode, but still is accepted. Whereas Snout Spout is given a different name. Gets to put the star on the tree in the Royal Palace, in the Christmas special.
Well, see, that's what I'm saying. His role wasn't super fantastic in the cartoon. I'm just saying if, like, Snout Spout got into some amazing action when he was doing stuff, and then picture Rio Blast, if he popped into the cartoon and you see the guns come out, and there was a lot of episodes where he's taking care of business, I think that...
Well, they weren't going to make any of these guys real, badasses. I mean, Mossman never really got to do anything really cool in Filmation. He's just kind of toned down and not given the best voice, and Cyclone didn't get to really do anything special either. And, I just felt like anybody who came after that first season of the Filmation episodes is going to get, aside from Buzz Off and Mechaneck and Disappearing Dragons, they were depicted fantastic.
Yeah,
I just felt like. Go ahead.
Yeah, Daniel, your thoughts. Like I said, I mean, what would you think? I mean, like,
you don't cut me off here. You better finish your thought now.
I'm sorry. I know. I was just going to say, like, it seems like anybody, the characters that came out in the 1982 to 1985 waves are the ones that most people seem to like gravitate toward, and the ones that they seem to remember the most. And I have to wonder if that was like a drop off in terms of kids being into He-Man, like when it went into 86 and the sales kind of dropped off. I think a lot of fans now, like hardcore fans know all of those characters like Blast Attack and Scare Glow and stuff, but I think a lot of like casual fans, like everybody knows who Trapjaw is, right? Everybody knows who Evil Lynn is, but nobody knows who, like casual people don't know who Blast Attack is. They don't know who Ninjor is. So those characters have kind of like, they're just not as popular. I love them just as much, but for some reason, people just don't. For some reason, those don't hold as fond a place for people. Nostalgia is a very powerful thing. Nostalgia really.
It is, and like I said, I think that with the cartoon, really, I mean, I just keep envisioning in my head. I just with Joe Amato's, hypotheticals. If Rotar and Twistoid hypothetically were in season 1 of Masters of the Universe cartoon, and they were in there a lot, and we didn't get figures for them till later, I still think then, just by being in the cartoon and people seeing them, because it's like giving them life, now they have life beyond the toys. They're seeing them on the cartoon. I think then people would have probably been against them having legs, just like when I said, should the hoverbots have them? Because, man, I felt like, I insulted somebody's mother. I was like, hey, should they have legs? Like, hey, it's like, Jesus, calm down. But they were like, oh, no legs. So I'm telling you, cartoons are a big impression, on kids.
What about Spycore?
What about Spycore?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. People are going to go by the cartoon so heavily. I think Spycore's look carries him higher than his poor depiction in the cartoon. Don't you think? Your whole theory here, I find it, the plot all over the place here.
I'm telling you, if Rotar and Twister would have been in that cartoon, showcasing their spinning feature,
and they would have came out and if they had released a third official season. Who knows? They probably would have had bad voices. They probably would have been, getting caught in bubblegum traps and things like that, and can't spin around. And
I could just hear Lou Scheimer doing Twistoid's voice. I can hear it.
Yeah, and it probably wouldn't be a very flattering voice of the character either. Just, no, and Rotar shows up and like the circus returns to eternity. The Greatest Show on Eternity sequel, or something like that. Just something completely that's doing a service to these characters here. I'm not, because anybody who's listened to the show knows that I absolutely love Filmation. I love it. But I've told Joe numerous times that the quality of the character depictions dropped drastically, probably because of all the angry parents thinking it's teaching their kids to bring up the conjure of the devil or something, some nonsense like that. So. I just felt like if they were in the cartoon, if people don't like their look, which is the biggest complaint, they just don't think they fit. I don't think it would help them a whole lot because Spycore got poor treatment. Mossman didn't get the best. Cyclone didn't get the best. A lot of the, Snout Spout didn't get treated. I mean, not treated. I just felt like they didn't get as prominent depictions as like Fisto and Stratos and Ram Man and.
But you know what the thing is, they were still there though. I mean, they were still there enough to where people could relate them cartoon and figures for
like
for the
people. Only in like a couple of episodes, but still, it's you feel like they're treating him as a serious character. Where I just felt like Rotar Twistle would have met a silly, unfortunate fate. I don't.
They could have. I mean, really, I honestly think just the look of them, just them being there, might have changed it. Because, like I said, I mean, look at how people have always loved the hoverbots, and I keep bringing them up as an example because they've always been there from the beginning, even like way into other, episodes. But people know that look, so there's no question that when those were going to become figures for classics, they wanted that exact look. So I think it would have helped. I mean, really, honestly, I think it would have helped the figures, if they were in the cartoon, to see that look. Then when classics were making them, I don't think there would have been as big as a debate of giving them legs. Because I think they felt like they're out of place because they didn't look right. So give them legs so they could display with the people that have legs. And if you want, have them, just look like they did as a vintage toy. Because like I said, otherwise, I mean, really, why wouldn't the hoverbots got the same leg treatment? Because they always said the reason they should have legs to display with the other figures. So why wouldn't hoverbots get them? Because you know why? They know they never had them in the cartoon. I really, like I said, I think that's my thing with the Filmation impression that kids might have. I mean, just a theory. Not saying I'm right, but I'm thinking it could have been a little.
I think with this thing, we're supporting casual fans. Do you think so, Daniel? We're supporting the people who, when they think He-Man, they think Trapjaw and Beastman. That's about as far as they go. When you show them something that looks, like this here, Twistoid here, classic. They think, what is that? What is that, like a Galoob toy from the 80s or something? It's, I kind of feel like people who probably would have demanded legs for the classics, I just feel like the three of us, we get it. To put legs on these things was absolutely just, what are you thinking? And I just
it was a total sales tactic. I mean, it was made for sales, I'm sure, because they wanted to appeal to as big a section of people as they could, right? So some people, like you said, casual fans might not. I think a lot of the hardcore fans of those characters are going to display them without legs for sure. Mine went right in the parts bin with the spare weapons. The legs went right in.
I never even took them out. I was just just throw it away because I'm not using it. Maybe I could have sold them to Joe and used customs or something.
Hey guys, we have Spikor, Evil Master of Untouchable Combat, in the chat room on YouTube, and he says that Spikor sometimes had hands in the cartoon, and his classics had both hands.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. I think they did that in the cartoon. Didn't they display him differently, like you said? Sometimes where even the dragons.
Yeah, like in the games episode, he's doing the whole Hulkamania pose here. But then when you see him in Visitors from Earth, he's got his his trident in hand. He looks imposing. He's gonna stab you here. So
if they had gotten Hulk Hogan, if they had gotten the Hulkster to do the voice of Spikor, I think
Well, let me tell you something.
Enjoyable.
That's awesome. They use that stock footage of Spikor flexing, just so many times. But, man, he's so cool, dude.
No, I'm glad you mentioned that in the chat room. I appreciate that. That's really cool.
Yeah. They could have done a crossover with Hulk Hogan's Rockin' Wrestling.
Oh dear God!
Oh boy, boy, would I have been there front and center for that one, man. The Hogan and He-Man teaming up in a tag team match against Skeletor and Roddy Piper, and you got Captain Lou Albino and Chef Allen outside the ring, providing food and stuff like that.
Sign me up. Me up.
Boy, now that could be a podcast we could do, talking about how we cross up rock and wrestling with the Heroic Warriors and Evil Warriors.
Fabulous awesome. Moolah and Evil in. There you go.
Oh boy, yeah, that's awesome, man.
Well, that was all right. Well, that was pretty good. Yeah, I think the energies always needed some kind of good respect. Like you said, it was fantastic. You did a fanfic on him. We found out a little more about Rotar and an Italian comic. He appeared there, and them in general. Like you said, whether you love or hate the legs, I mean, either way, they're fantastic looking classic figures. And if you display them either way, I mean, hey, that's your choice, and it's great. So, but it's just always fun having different opinions. And now this is where I'm for a second going to take a break and let Tyler, maybe we're going to go into our character profile now. Tyler, I want you to start off our character selection of the week. and then you and Danielle could have a little fun back and forth. But go ahead, Tyler. Let's see who we're talking about. Oh, somebody that you love, I think.
Apparently, my opinions have come into question. That I'm a misogynist of some kind here, and that my the captain of the sands of time, Miss Sandy Vagina herself, Teela, is completely
classy.
unfair, unnecessary, and just completely immoral, ugly. In fact, I've even walked into random bathrooms in my area and found graffiti targeting me. In my views of Teela. I don't know how they found me. I don't know. It was written in crayon with the R's reversed and all kinds of stuff like that. So clearly they were just writing whatever. But I think I figured who was quite upset with that. And apparently, if she's been listening to the show, or gotten word of it, she's heard my views on and not just before we did a bio about her a while back. I'm having fun building up to this great debate here because when Joe told me that Danielle thought doesn't really like Teela that much, that is like she probably thinks I hate women or something like that. Which I want to run with this here. You know what? People already know what I think about the character, and I think that before I'm going to let Danielle unleash hell on me, being on the macho misogynist here. Teela is an essential character to this mythology. I would not want another story, movie, cartoon, toy line that does not include her. She's a must. Even though the live action movie from 1987 got her right the most, she looked the hottest in that one, and. Of course, I thought the same about her as a kid. I grew up, and I thought, hey, I like her a lot more. But all right, Danielle, the podium is yours. Just rip me a new one there.
Here we go.
Well, Joe wanted me to, he's clearly setting up this debate here, this war of the sexes, apparently, and I apologize.
Here. I think it's quite great. We're breaking new ground here as we speak.
I apologize in advance because, to quote you, it is my time of the month, and so I might fly a little off the handle.
I've said that about Teela, that she's always PMSing or something. So how fitting is that she is on her period? We have got not only our first female on the show.
I'm not really. I am not. That is not happening. I just threw that out there. I had to say it. No, I mean,
you should have planned. If you planned it, you should have brought like a box of tampons and set them right there. Just kind of brought them on the table, just so she ain't pulling down her people. That
would have been ideal. It's just I hear you talk about Teela, and it's her time of the month, and words that rhyme with which I relate to that, I guess, but
I have never called her that though, but I definitely insinuated it.
You insinuated, and I said, what is going on here? And then the sand in the vagina, of course, that was, gosh, what do you say to that? When you're listening to that, you're like, wow, Tyler really doesn't like Teela, and then of course I have to wonder why, and it seems to be the Filmation Teela, and then I think about Filmation Teela, and I say to myself, well, okay, I'm gonna acknowledge Teela in the Filmation cartoon can be a bit hard on dear Prince Adam. She is hard on him, but think about it. Try and put yourself in Teela's shoes. She's the captain of the guard, right? She's grown up with this guy, with this prince, and she's clearly, there's some feelings there. There's somewhat like siblings, but they're also somewhat, there's a bit of attraction there, which she's even said, right? She'd like to meet somebody. Her ideal man is somebody with Adam's wit and He-Man's courage, right? So Teela sees this guy who's, supposed to have these responsibilities as a prince. He's supposed to, he's late for combat practice all the time. He's off sleeping in the woods somewhere, which, I mean, I don't blame him. That looks really awesome. Go hang out with Cringer and Orko and take a nap, go fishing. That's great. But to her, you know, she's in a position where she's like, you know, she's all about responsibility. And here's this guy that she's loves, you know, and who's acts like a so of course she's going to get ticked off at him and give him hell about it all the time. Like that's of course she's going to do that. Why wouldn't she do that? I mean, Randor gives him just as much flack, and I didn't hear you give Randor a hard time and say he has sand in his forever. So I mean, and Teela has shown again and again. She's, you know, she is headstrong. She's a pain. She doesn't listen to her dad, but she is headstrong, absolutely. But she's also resourceful and brave. There's so many good qualities about her that I think outweigh the sometimes annoying, you know, ball busting, as I believe you call it, that she does to Adam. You know, she's an awesome character. I love Teela, the Filmation cartoon. I can, you know, it's like, what is she going to do? Adam's slacking off all the time. Of course, she's going to get on his case.
All right.
But, you know, ultimately, they're going to fall for each other. You know?
Yeah. In my head, you know, with the whole like hero, son of He-Man thing, like, yes, they would, you know, they end up together. I do not quite. I would never ever want to change it. To me, that should be that's canon 101. That is a must, and it's going to happen. Now, as much as I like the idea of He-Man ending up with Frosta. That would probably be like a summer love thing, and that he kind of goes back to Teela, and Frosta becomes the Ice Queen because she's so, you know, she's so scorned by He-Man's, you know, withdrawal from her. But you know, you brought up some really good points about that. But what I guess her attitude just never seems to know when to stop, because anytime there's an opportunity, you know, where there's going to be a call to action, or we need to do something, we got to take care of this. Her first order of business is to bust Adam's balls before we get going. You know, just let me just take the time and let everyone know here that you don't have to go with me, Adam, or he's probably doing this, or he's probably chasing Lady Amanda, you know, or whatever the case may be. It's all, no matter what, even when it's, you know, yes, if she catches Adam, you know, like in Teela's question, like, aren't you ashamed of yourself when he's like caught fishing? You know, I didn't catch a thing. You know, yes, she's got every right to be mad at him for that. Yes,
which was a great comeback. It was a great comeback.
It was, you know, I as a kid, I'm like, you tell her, Adam was like, oh, he's got to go deal with her mouth here. So, but her just, it's like she just thrives on embarrassing him when she can, and obviously this is building it because she sees Adam chasing other women around the court and not really giving her probably the attention that she's craving because she's a fiery redhead. You know, she's you know, is that bad to say? I just feel like, you know, when you're a fiery redhead, is that
I was like,
Actually, I have one follow-up question.
I'm not pissing off any redheaded women right now, or people who are married to redheaded women, or what have you.
But Tyler, I just want to ask you one follow-up question. Misogynist. So if my back is sore, that means you rub the muscles until they're relaxed, right?
Oh, great. Now my grammar's being challenged right here on the spot. You know, I won third place on Walmart spelling bee in Tennessee years ago.
He's been working on that one.
And
He's been working on that one for a while, you can tell.
Look, I've never been called the word before in my life, so I don't have a reason to use it. And that now that I have used it, I'm being called out for it. So
I never said that. I don't think I ever said that. But I did find it interesting that Teela was the strong focus there. And Randor never got any flack from you, and he gives Adam hell all the time.
That's his daddy, I guess, could say whatever he wants. He's like, that's my son. You better do something.
But she's like his best friend. She's been his best friend since they were.
I never really thought of like.
And he runs off.
But
right,
I
right
expect
before they
more
fight.
from this girl that's captain of the guard here. Okay, you expect her to be a lot more, adult about things. That she's not. I mean, obviously she's hot-headed. She doesn't think. She gets herself in more trouble, and He-Man's got to go save her. You find out that she finds, huh?
What about when she saves Adam, like in the in the comets coming at him, and then she knocks him out of the way? Like she didn't waste any time doing that. Or when she's
that's
come on, jeez, for Pete's sake. All right, whatever. Or when she's in the desert with Evelyn, and she shows her resourcefulness by cutting that cactus in half, and it's filled with water. You know, you're focusing too much on the things that annoyed you about Teela as a child. And
they're saying like I'm carrying childhood trauma with me into my adulthood over this very angry redheaded woman.
That's anger.
Indeed.
You gotta let that go. You gotta let that go. It's too much. No, but you know what's weird is I never thought of like what you said, and you're right. It's like picture there's somebody that you like. You have your high school sweetheart. You know, there's a girl you like, and you know you pick on her sometimes. You pick on her a little too much, and it's not because you hate her or anything, or you want to pick her. It's because you like her. So I mean, I guess I could see the aspect like of what you're saying, how she might pick on Adam all the time because she really likes him. But I know what Tyler kind of means too, because sometimes it seems like her portrayal was a little too over the top. Like she's always anticipating Adam screwing up.
I agree.
You know, and that could have been a little annoying because I mean I like.
And that's probably out of anger because Adam's not putting out. You know, where
I never thought of that.
I'd rather see this man fail than succumb to my desires. You know,
well, see, that's what I liked in some of the earlier comics, like the DC comics, the earlier ones, where she was blonde. She was more of a warrior, and she was somebody that I think she treated Adam better. She wasn't as annoying, nitpicking or.
Yes, she wasn't. She was ticked off at him in those DC miniseries when he's like, I mean, she was not as I guess shrewish.
That's what I mean. Exactly.
She was on his case. She got on his case quite a bit because in those DC the crossover with Superman, like he's like out carousing in the bar and stuff, and she's like, I have to save your butt. Well, again, I always have to do this.
It's true, but there's a way that it was kind of different. I mean, I even like how they were kind of like interacting back and forth. Like when he was doing his training, and apparently she's as strong as He-Man in that issue because she's throwing the barbell to him and he's catching it, and Prince Adam is tying it into a knot. I still always wondered that. I was like, wow, this is different. I mean, how strong is this Prince Adam, and how strong is this Teela? It was just kind of.
I mean, it's somebody she loves, right? Or somebody she loves both as somebody. Like she thinks of him as family, right? But also has this, also a love interest thing going on, and it's mutual too. I'm sure, Adam and He-Man, feel the same way. But you see this person that you like actually really care for, and right when there's a battle that's about to happen, he takes off running and disappears, and it's like, what the hell? Like you want that person to show courage and to be a strong person, and they disappoint you over and over and over again, and that's what kills Adam too, because Adam's like, I hate having to do this all the time, right? Like he hates that, but that's what she sees. That's what she sees, somebody who's acting.
It's a difference too, and that's the thing that's slightly different is if you notice in Filmation, if you will, his whole laziness was kind of like an act, if you will, compared to the DC one. Now, he really was. I mean, he was the ladies' man. That was his thing. He wasn't as, I guess, bumbling. They did the whole, when it came to Filmation, you got more of the bumbling Clark Kent Superman thing with the Adam He-Man thing, just, he might not do this right. He doesn't do that right, even though he knows what he could do. But I think that's what I liked in the DC one, was the DC one, he really was this laid-back prince. He's with the ladies. He can relax and do what he wants. And, and then he can become He-Man. But I don't know, there was something about the way I felt like was portrayed a little differently and better in the DC stuff. And at least Teela, sure, like you said, while she's still writing his case, her character felt stronger. She felt stronger and more confident. To me, I liked how she was.
Mm-hmm. In the DC comic, Adam says he's going to raise flagons of ale with stout gents or stout. I forgot what it was.
The word they used,
yeah.
Another one, Teela. Now, this is with Tyler. I'd be curious, too. What did you both think of MYP, Teela, and her?
Oh, she sucks even more.
Oh,
wait.
Tyler, is there any version of Teela that you like
The
besides
live
the
action
'87
movie?
movie? Just that's the only version.
The Golden Book. Anytime Teela was portrayed in the Golden Books, Golden Book Teela was portrayed as, she's He-Man's like female companion, not like boyfriend girlfriend thing, but she's she's always there to help and fight. And she'll get in there, she'll get like in Caverns of Fear, where she's going one-on-one with Trapjaw, and then kind of gets overpowered. But she's not she doesn't come off as very like, no time for that, we got to go over here, without thinking or being rational. Or she's always written a lot more and a little bit more intelligent, and not that, because if what Linda Gary helps make Teela a very beloved character, and she's got some very good moments, and I would love, you can come back and we can do like Teela's Quest, and then I will sit there and just praise the hell out of that episode, because that's a very good episode.
So good.
It's a great episode. It's got good
wonderful
moments. It's got one of the more emotional moments of the series in an episode. And I blame myself for not focusing, but I always tried to make a point of saying, yes, Teela does have a lot of good things about her. But the way she's portrayed in Golden Books was great. But I'd say her lowest point was MYP. Not even though her updated look, she looked fantastic. But geez, man, I mean, her and Adam both were portrayed as putzes. It's at least in Filmation, where he's establishing to Man-at-Arms and to us, the kids watching it, that he's everything he's doing, and he's always portrayed as this lazy oaf, because he's there, holding court with his dad. They hear about this. They're going down to check on the latest that the attorney is running low, and blah 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 blah. But MYP Adam, the guy doesn't hesitate to take a chance and just be lazy, just because we're told that in Filmation, at least by this point, he's accepted this responsibility. It's like a 24/7 on call. He's like a firefighter. He's always on call here. He doesn't have time to take a break. Whereas MYP is just like, he's fussing over, I got to learn to use proper silverware and stuff like that, which I understand where they're coming from. Or like in Council of Evil, when everyone's being disappeared left and right, or everyone is disappearing left and right. Excuse me. I don't want Doug to come in and correct my grammar again.
I'm just waiting for the right moment.
Yeah, I'm sure that you got everything just waiting. It's like, I'm waiting for that call. But I just felt like both of them, you don't feel sympathetic for either one of them. You feel like, how these two ever end up together? Because there's no, we're established in the beginning it should be Adam is lazy, Teela can't stand it. But then there's no personal growth for Adam in that. So you kind of feel like these two are just like two rocks slamming against each other. There's nothing fun about it. There's nothing interesting from a character standpoint with that.
Yeah. I'm going to agree. There was very little warmth in that relationship between the two of them. I didn't get that was any connection there. And I felt that way. I love the MIP cartoon. Don't get me wrong.
I had a lot of great moments, but that was one of its weaker points,
Yeah, I just felt a lot of the character portrayals were a bit distant and cold, including like the Sorceress Man-at-Arms. It just that was one thing I just missed, is like there's that kind of family bond that happens between the characters was kind of toned down quite a bit in MYP, and I felt Teela fell under that. But I don't think that was her lowest point. I think her lowest point was the early 2012 DC comic where she was really hateful. The early 2012 DC comic, they kind of corrected the course a little bit later on with her, but early on she was so insufferably obnoxious. I hated Teela, and I don't want to hate Teela. I want to like Teela.
Yeah, even towards Mechanic, I hated what she was doing.
Oh man, that is like, that does it.
That was a mess. Just everybody go out there, get this, get the Teela. Go ahead, get this mini comic. Something right here. That's what you need to get. Get this.
Oh, yeah. We didn't talk about the early mini comics with Teela because she was very different in the Alcala Donald Glut comics.
Yeah, she's portrayed very strongly in all of those.
I like those too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, when Teela in the mini comics, there's another one. She's always portrayed pretty consistently in the mini comics. Whether she's taking on Roboto and about ready to have the battle axe kind of thrown right into her head, but she's still taking on, Roboto and double-edged sword, and I mean, always I can't think of one where she's like comes off as just like roll your eyes at her, groan, or just like someone put a sock in it, love. Not one. So there's another one. She always portrayed consistently well in the mini comics.
Yeah.
Yeah, I liked her in the mini comics too. She was a very competent combatant. Like, she was a warrior, just like everyone else. And in those early ones, they said she was like possessed by the spirits of these ancestral warriors or something. It was like some real wild mystical thing that was kind of thrown out there in one of those Don Glut Alcala mini comics. And I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. That's a cool idea. And then, of course, in that second wave that DC did, the mini comics, she was cloned from the sorceress or the goddess, I guess. So she was like, basically was just a duplicate of and then they merged.
I've never really taken that idea. It seems a bit too far-fetched, even for what they're asking us to believe.
I mean, I never cared too much for that idea either, and I didn't get why it was brought back for classics, because I think it just works so well that her father was. We don't know who her father is, but she was adopted by Man-at-Arms. Not Fisto. It's definitely not Fisto.
No matter what they're hinting at, it's not Fisto.
It's not being known. Like, I think it's better.
Yeah, I like that too. That's what's one of the coolest things about Master Universe is that we don't need explanations for everything. We don't need to know where people came from. We don't need to know that there's a race of moss men running around in the forest somewhere or something like that. We need just one of everybody, and they're mysterious characters. We don't need to know how they got there. Well, unless the mini comics gave it to us or something like that. But like, we were all sold on these characters here, men and women, heroes and villains, because they look cool and what they did and what they stood for. Over-explaining it takes away a lot of their mystique.
That's true. No, I agree. And one quick thing, when you were talking about Prince Adam from MYP, now that's the one thing where I guess I have a different thought about that Prince Adam.
Oh boy, here we go.
There they go. There goes Joe again. No, what's weird is, now I like that Prince Adam, and here's why. Because that Prince Adam reminded me of the early DC Prince Adam, meaning he's carousing, he's lazy, he doesn't like learning or doing certain things he doesn't care about. I mean, he's just like, he's a lazy prince. And that's what I mean. It wasn't an act. It wasn't an act early. It wasn't an act in MYP. But in Filmation, he kind of says he knows he has to act a certain way. And that's when I tell you it's the whole Superman Clark Kent thing. I felt like it's a dual identity where he acts lazy. But when you are lazy...
That makes better sense than someone who is like, oh, well, I guess if I have to go save the burning building, I guess
But you know what's cool about it? It gives him... Well, I know what you mean, but I like that it actually gives him two personalities. You have this lazy prince, and then he's trying to learn to be a hero. He's got to learn to get rid of these lazy ways that he has, so he doesn't have to put on it. He really is just a lazy guy. But then,
the mentality.
I always got the vibe that Prince Adam was, even in Filmation, that even though he said it was an act, I always got the vibe that he kind of genuinely enjoyed the woods and fishing. He seemed like he really liked doing that. I don't think was an act. I think
it was a mix. I think a mix of it, how they did it. Like how they wrote it. Sometimes, you could tell he probably laying back, but other times he's acting.
I know. I take the heart, because I was like, the man deserves a nap. All right, knowing what we see him adventure, the man wants to get away from the royal palace, sit underneath a tree with Cringer, sleep while he's trying to catch a fish. That's like, the man has earned a break, and he's like, I owe nobody an explanation for this. If I want to do it, I'm going to do it.
And what you just said there, Tyler, and that's the reason. And that's the reason I said I enjoy his secret identity. While some people said, "Oh, what's the sense? Why? Who cares? Why does he need a secret identity? I mean, who's he really going to protect?" I'm like, "Well, he's got his family, but anyways, a secret identity.
Anybody's ever read a comic book should know the answer to that,
right?" Like I said, we know about secret identities, and don't you think? Okay, if they said no, he should just permanently be He-Man. It's like, and remember, I said it a while back. I said, don't you think He-Man would just like to relax? I mean, when you know it's He-Man, they're always going to fight you. Don't you want to relax once in a while? That's the thing with being, like you said, Prince Adam. He doesn't always want to fight. He doesn't feel like he has to fight all the time. Can a man or anybody just have some peace? and some peace and quiet. And so it's true. You're right. I do want to go just take a nap by a tree, and me and Cringer relax and just have a fish. Yeah, you know.
After all he does as He-Man, I mean, he does so much. So yeah, he does deserve a nap. But Teela doesn't know that he's He-Man.
They're trying to take away the fun.
Doesn't know he's He-Man though. So to her, he's just some slacker. He's a slacker, and he has all these responsibilities that he just doesn't do. So she doesn't.
He's a McFly. Is that who he is? He's a McFly.
When she finds out he's He-Man, then she's gonna go, oh,
hey.
That's why. And then she's gonna say,
well, that's the story I would love to see come to fruition is to see her take on the mantle of the sorceress and then realize that Adam was He-Man all this time. I mean, for her to emotionally take in all of that.
That would be cool.
That's a story I felt that can really develop her in like a big story of her maturing. And just that's something I've always been fascinated with, is like knowing those two big things she's going to have to deal with. And then spend the rest of her life taking care of Castle Grayskull in there just like her mother did. And not being able to raise, their son, Hero, if people accept that canon, or pretty much the rest of her life like that. Well, Adam is ruling court in the royal palace, and, she can't see him except coming to him as Zor the Falcon.
Which keeps that relationship strong then, because they're not around each other, getting on each other's nerves. Like, would you just get out of Castle Grayskull for a while? Just why don't you go back to that palace? I'm tired of seeing you.
All the kind of arguments they could have.
Yeah. Did you let Cringer out? No. It's your turn tonight.
You changed his litter box. Come on, look at this. This is too much.
He walks up the drawbridge and slams it shut. And he's going to go hang out the Laughing Swan Inn. And, what's your problem, man? And he's like, Teela was on my case again tonight, man. And then she's calling through telepathy, Adam, when you coming home? Just
oh my God!
I better be invited to that bachelorette party. Is all I'm gonna say, because Shebra be there too.
I'll make sure we throw Adam like the biggest bachelor party. we're gonna bring in all kinds of starlets that Rotar is insisting on bringing. I'm sure he knows some of the great
Rotar knows. He's hooked up.
They just cut to a scene where Rotar's like, I got it.
Chef Alan's gonna bring out the cake again, and
you're gonna
pop out. Here. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Pop it out. Well, that was great. It's good that we could do that. Like I said, have all different opinions on one thing, but end in a good laughter and happy thought there. I mean, that's what it's all about, anyways. Like I said, everybody's having different opinions, but we can still respect it and just have a blast.
See, Tyler, Joe was trying to set us at each other's throats, so he
I was anticipating that. I was like, all right, I'm ready to. The gloves are off here. This will be my first time talking to the famous Penny Dreadful here, but I want it to be a memorable first confrontation. Kind of like, when Warrior and Hogan the Royal Rumble. That's what I wanted this to be. Is epic.
There we go.
That's
my whole plan backfired. The plan of my Joe Lock just backfired. It didn't work. So, son of a gun.
It was a very civil conversation.
So now we have to turn on Modulon here.
There you go.
I was expecting you to pull the Jesse the Body Ventura commentary on me there.
Be like the color commentary, just decide, I can't believe it, Amato. She's done it again here. She's beat me again. Or she's actually pulled a fast one on me, said I can't spell or I don't use proper English. Or set me up to have Doug jump in here and question how I talk. And,
poor Tyler got attacked. I didn't even expect that. He came out of nowhere.
Dog's pot here.
Exactly. That's like somebody coming from backstage to run in the ring and hit you. That's what Doug did. He just came in, he ran from backstage, hit you with an insult, and took off and left you. Just left you in the middle of the ring hurt. But hey, it happens.
I'm the best there is.
Come in like Bobby Brain and trying to mock me, and then Daniel's like, "You can't do that," and then we just both clothesline again, throw you over the top rope.
There we go.
Awesome.
And then Rock and
exactly
live as well.
That was great. All right. Well, Danielle, I wanted to thank you for joining us. And before we close, up the show, if you have any things you want to promote, say, or, let fans know about you, go ahead, you do that. And, go Go ahead. Shoot anything you want.
Oh, sure, thanks. Well, definitely please consider picking up the newspaper comic strip book, He-Man newspaper comic strip book that's coming out from Dark Horse in February. We have the Character Guide and World Compendium that's coming out in May, and that's like tons and tons of different canons of all different characters and locations and everything that's in there. Check out shillingshockers.com. That's my TV show, which I'm semi-retired now, but I do a Halloween special every year. I host horror movies on local TV. He-Man.org. I plug that for Val. Check out He-Man.org, news and all kinds of discussions about different things. And I will see you guys online on Facebook and in the He-Man community and PowerCon. Hopefully you guys will make it out to PowerCon this year. I know Joe hasn't gone yet. Tyler, Dirt, come on down. Like, it would be great to see you guys in person and hang out.
I'd love to go to PowerCon.
Yeah,
guys,
I guess it's just
fun, guys.
the getting the money together and all that. I mean, I fantasize about going every time it happens. I'm like, man, I wonder what it'd be like to be there right now. And then I yell at Joe because we're not there.
Man, I'll tell you, and this is has become almost like a stereotype saying this, but it's like online you see all these fights and people arguing sometimes and stuff about different things, but at PowerCon it really just there's like a fun vibe of everybody kind of hanging out and geeking out about He-Man together, and then you get to meet all the different people that worked on it, like Brian Dobson, Skeletor from MYP. Like, he comes up and hangs out at the party and we does Skeletor, and we're just all like, I don't know, it's just fun. It's a fun feeling. So I hope you guys come out because it would be great. If you're gonna come as Jason Voorhees, that's absolutely fine. I've always wanted to meet Jason. It would be great to meet him. So, but come on down. It'd be fun.
It'd be great. Like I said, we will. Like I said, I'd love to make it sometime, just like Tyler would, and it'll happen sometime. And I appreciate that. And thanks for all those. Like you said, all the shout outs you did. And now, Tyler, before you do your shout-outs, is there something you'd like to address before you do your shout-outs, just to let fans know something about next week's episode?
Oh, yes, of course. Next week, we are planning to be interviewing the production designer of the 1987 live-action movie, William Stout, the man who designed Blade and Beastman and the greatest film set that's ever been put on film in history, the Castle Grayskull. So we are planning on sitting down with this gentleman and picking his brain and asking him what it was like to work with Menahem Golan and Yoram Globus. Good grief, I always get their names so. The Canon Film Company, the people who that's the name. Good man, I'm really botching this here. I'm like Sid Vicious right now. And this is live.
That's the brain that I do.
About what it was like making the movie, dealing with all the behind-the-scenes troubles and problems, and coming up with designs and working with Mattel and just all the chaos. I feel like there's so many unanswered questions about working on that film that need to be asked, and that's what we're planning on doing next Sunday.
That'll be great. All right. So, any recommendations of episodes or anything, or just do you want that to be your thing that you do that you end with?
All right. Well, I'm gonna recommend the '87 movie just because of what's coming up, of course, and then I'm gonna pick a pro Teela episode here to kind of help win back the good graces of Penny Dreadful here. She could be putting a curse on me in her late night show or something like that, and I don't even know it here. So I want to make sure that that's the kibosh on that. I'm gonna have to go with. Gosh, because I've recommended so many episodes, and I know I've probably double dipped a couple times. You know what? I'm just going to go with Pawns of the Game Master again. Simply because when we're talking about the dynamics between Adam and Teela, that's the first time you really see them admit that they have something for each other. So just on that note alone, because of what we discussed, Pawns of the Game Master from season 1.
Okay. All right, thanks. That sounds like a good episode. Well, actually, all of them are good, even though some things could be nitpicked to death, like, we've done on a couple, but still, you got to watch them all. You have to see every one of these episodes one way or another. So
not the Star Child.
That's your favorite. Remember that Star Child is Tyler's favorite episode. So, yeah. Well, Danielle, before I do my closing remarks and everything, again, thank you so much for joining us on this episode. It was a blast.
Yeah, it was awesome having you on.
Oh my God, my pleasure, guys. Thank you so much for inviting me on. I really enjoyed chatting with you guys. I had a really good time, and thank you so much. And I look forward to listening to your. Yeah, cool, awesome. And I look forward to listening to future episodes.
All right.
Would you ever want to come back and do another, man versus woman, debate? Maybe we could decide the relationship between Evelyn and Skeletor. Is it as abusive as I think it is?
That is an interesting dynamic there for sure. There's a lot going on there.
Yeah. Keep it in mind. So, and as for me, you can always go to fansofpower.com, popculture.com, or popculturenetwork.com. Sorry about that, Doug. Don't you shoot me. Don't correct me. I know you got Tyler earlier. Don't get me now.
Yeah, we were on the show.
There you go. We all had our moment. And go to HeManWorld.com. And on Facebook, go to Masters of the Universe, He-Man and She-Ra Ultimate Fan Group. And they're all great places, all great people. So until next time, have a powerful day.
Good journey.
Oh, shoot. I had a quote in my head here. Now I'm getting ready to screw that one up, too. Good grief.
Well, there you ended with that. That's great. There, you don't know anything.
Well, at least I was going to quote something from My Cousin Vinny, and I've screwed it up here, because I'm all jumbled up right now.
The two Utes? You could have did that?
No, that's too easy.
Okay. Your biological clock is ticking. See, that could have been one.
All right, you were serious.
There you go.
There's my quote. You were serious about that.
All right.